and welcome to another live painting session with me. I'm just going to try and adjust this camera a little bit so that you can sort of maybe see my face, but give you guys some time to sort of roll in as well, because I know I'm a tad bit late today. But yes. Hey, Jill! Looks like you're the first one to arrive. Oh, now we have a couple more in. I'm just gonna pull up my screen so I can see your comments and get back to you guys soon. So, hi Patty, hi Joanne. Who else was there? Hi Melissa. Hi Leah. Hi Alice. Zanette. Hi Deborah. Okay. Yeah, so it's been an interesting week. We are apparently this was the last week of normal before everything went into shutdown last year, at least for us on our end over here. I think in the States it may have been somewhere around Feb. I'm not sure. But hi Cindy, hi Barbara, hi Kathy. Patty said something. Hi Judy, glad you could finally make it since you've never caught me live before. Hi Sue, hi Carol. Hi Nancy. Okay, awesome. What was I saying? Yes, this was the last week last year that was normal before everything went into shutdown. So it's kind of interesting to see how it's only been a year, but it feels like forever. And then this started. Hi, Lena. Not Feb, it was mid-March. Yeah, so it was right. My daughter's birthday is on the 15th, and it was the 14th or 13th is when we were told everyone stay home, cancel your March break, don't go on March break vacation. And we obviously weren't going anywhere, but I remember that being like the alarm. And we had a couple of her friends sleep over, and then that was it. And then we didn't see anyone for like months. But it's interesting how it's been a year. It's an anniversary at this point. Yeah. But let's talk about what we did this week. This week, I kind of put out the video on camellias. I call them Camillas in the video because I was missing the I think. For some reason, I thought it was Camillas, but it's not. It's camellias. And this is what that looked like. Yeah, there we go. And then I did this was Thursday's video, and then Saturday's video, which was yesterday, we kind of focused on the same tips for loose watercolor. I broke it down into 4 categories that you need to have or be mindful of when you're painting. And I figured let's make the exercise about camellias, so then maybe some of you might get it better, and more things to kind of take off as you're painting, or be intentional when you're painting. And then we did the blueberries, like I said. My intention was you can either make it like a simple pattern, which will allow you to kind of practice leaves and just like your shapes and the blending, or you could just redo Thursdays and kind of add it to that. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do what I am teaching you guys. So feel free to mix and match the videos. And a couple of people even asked, I know it's March, it's like springtime. A couple of people were asking for wildflowers. I just want to let you guys know, for those who are new, I think I have like 200 something videos out there. And last year I did about 4 videos, including lives, on wildflowers. So you should definitely check it out. I definitely think I'll be doing wildflowers again, but not right away, because wildflowers kind of remind me of the cottage. So I'm probably gonna wait till I get to the cottage, if things are okay and we're allowed to go to the cottage, and then maybe get some inspiration from there and put out a video. So we'll see. But for now, check out the other videos, guys. So this Sunday, I don't have a plan, so I figured I could maybe ask you guys and see in the comments, do you guys have anything specific you would like to do? Can we touch on what we did Thursday and Saturday and kind of build on that? Did you guys like this? I know there was like a really nice response to the camellias. People loved them, and people seem to love the colors as well. I'm just gonna give you guys like a couple of seconds to tell me in the comments, and if not, then I'm just gonna run with it and wing it. Today's gonna be a winging Sunday for me because I have no plan at all. So let's see what people are saying. Hi Sharon. Kashkari. Hi Kashkari. Hi Kathy. Cindy loves the florals from this week. Okay, we could keep it simple and kind of go with that. Wing it, baby. That's what I like to do. Filbert brush. Oh yes, let's talk about the Filbert brush really quickly. So my Filbert brush came in the mail, and now I see what everyone is talking about because look at this. This is a number 6 from the Princeton, and this is the no-name one that I have, and it's a number 4, as you can see. It's a no-name one that I purchased like 4 years ago, I think, and I just assumed that the Princeton and this no-name would be very similar in size, which is why I listed it in my description. If anyone wanted to purchase it, they're fairly inexpensive, but at the same time, this is like just look at them side by side. They're massively huge. Anyone who's better accustomed to watercolor, can you please let me know, is this normal to have one brush so huge and then the other one so small? And look at the discrepancy in size as well, like the numbers, I mean, not just the actual sizing of the brush. So to me, it's, I'm gonna just be very straight up and say, I don't know why they're so different. But if anyone else knows, that would be amazing if you could kind of maybe make it in the comments, because I would hate to suggest another kind of brush and then it turns out to be just as small. Like, is this the norm or is this the norm? Maybe this was like a one-off and not a fabulous company to work. I don't know, because there's no name. There's no name on this, just a Q. So anyone has extra information, I would love it if you just like, if you're watching the replay, maybe write a comment below, or if you're watching it right now and you have a response, chat away in the chat box, and that might be helpful. Let me just see. Oh, lots of people saying wing it. Okay, awesome. I think I will. Can you find one? Pamela is asking, Pamela, I'm assuming you're asking me to find you a brush that's like this. Yeah, I'm gonna try and see. Maybe someone over here on YouTube who knows better about products, like watercolor products, could kind of shed some light on that. I just assumed it was the same. Melissa says size discrepancy is huge among all brushes, even within the same brand. Within the same brand, at least that kind of makes sense, I think. Right? I mean, like the silver black velvet, you can see this is an 8, this is a 4, but like I would think that it would be minuscule, if anything, because I understand like every brand has a different kind of sizing. It's like buying clothes, and then like you might fit in a small somewhere and you might fit in a medium somewhere else, but this is massive, and this is supposed to be a 6 and this is supposed to be a 4. So huge difference. But I did list this as products to buy because I purchased it myself and I wanted to use it. I wanted a 4 and I wanted a 6, and it looks like they're almost kind of backwards. This almost feels like a 2 or a 0 maybe, I don't know. But okay, let me see if anyone's saying anything. You have to go by measurements, not by size number. Right, measurements. Like, how would you even measure? Because when you're buying it offline, I mean online, it's a little bit harder to decipher which brand carries it. But it looks like Melissa seems to know something. Pamela, maybe you should like talk directly to Melissa. Melissa, if you can share more, if you're aware of another brand that has something this size, we'd love to have you share that with us. That's what I tried. Just reading comments just to make sure, because it looks like there's a lot of chat happening. Jerry's Artorama someone mentioned Jerry's Artorama. So these are all places that are in the States. Unfortunately, I can't tell you where to go because we don't have those places here, guys. So the only source I have is Curry's, and I don't shop from there. I shop from Amazon. And that's why I kind of have the links in my description for all my products are like Amazon. And like I mentioned, this one was like 6 years ago. Yeah, this was 6 years ago, and they were on clearance. Like I think I got it for like $1 Canadian. Like it was ridiculous. Um, Water Wave Media. Okay, Pamela, if that is the name, if that's the name, I wasn't sure if that was the name, but like if Water Wave Media is the name, then I think you should look it up and see if you can purchase it online somewhere. The States always has more choice and more availability than we do in any case anyway. So you guys are sitting really pretty if you do want to kind of pursue this brush. Uh, each company size different. My Canson 5 is twice as big as my Princeton 8. Carol, yeah, that sounds insanely huge. Uh, or I should say grouping per brand. Okay, lots of chat about this brush. Oh, you're welcome, Joanne. Thank you so much for joining. Glad you liked the videos. No, Cindy, they're both synthetic. None of them are natural. Super cheap. I mean, I got it for $1. I can't imagine that being natural at all. Hi, Artie. Okay, I'm gonna measure mine and then I guess list it in on Instagram, so you guys can definitely check it out. Check that post out if you're interested in purchasing this one here. Let's see, who else is saying what? Rosemary brushes, someone is suggesting to check it out, I'm assuming. 6 Gilbert brushes, we'll photo it and put it on IG. Joanne, that's helpful. Yes, so if Gilbert brushes are close to this, maybe that's another option, sure. The Brush Guys is recommended a lot on YouTube. I've never heard of them. The Brush Guys. Okay, I think I should check them out. They're in the States, but very reasonable. I'm sure you can contact them about the measurement of a size. Okay. Yeah, so I think lots of great comments here, really helpful. Thanks guys for participating and kind of helping one another out. That's really nice. Hi Lydia, thanks for dropping in. Catch the replay later. Free floral projects, Janie. Just wondered if it takes several days to show up. Janie, if you have signed up for a free download and you haven't gotten it, you should have gotten it the same day. Check your spam, and if you haven't received it in spam either, just send me an email, claris@clarisgomes.ca, and just let me know, send me the link on which one you signed up for, then I know which one to send you. But yeah, it shouldn't take several days at all. Thanks, Jill. I'll check it out later. I want to get this started because we're already at 2:20 today. So I'm going to get started. Thanks, Yvonne. Welcome. Okay, I'm going to get started, guys. Thanks so much for your interaction over here. I love it. But I don't want to, I know a lot of people need to head off somewhere at 3, and it is a Sunday, so I'm going to be respectful of that time. So I'm going to switch over right now. We're going to get started. I'm going to list all my products that I have, that I am going to be using today. And like always, they're always mentioned in the description below, with the exception, obviously, of the Filberts. If I end up using this, then the link one is not, I'm not going to use this today. Let's just keep it simple. All right, everything else is listed there. All right, switching over so you can see my table and we can begin. And here goes winging it. All right, so here's my table. So you can see everything. So I think I will definitely stick with the concepts that I focused on in this week. And the concepts being the variations in color, white space, texture, shapes, and those are the 4 tips that I had mentioned for loose watercolor, which is what I had done here for Thursday's video and then Saturday's video right here again. So mixing two-tone colors, having different kinds of leaf shapes or even petal shapes, and then just coming up with a pretty looking painting or design or what have you that you can either kind of frame or gift to someone. Let me see what's happening here. Okay, perfect. So pushing this downward a little bit so you can see better. So for brushes, I'm going to be using my Princeton 8, my silver black velvet number 4, and I'm going to keep the number 1 Da Vinci mop brush handy just in case I need it. A couple of you have asked me, is there another substitute you can use for the Da Vinci? I mean, if you don't have anything else, push comes to shove, I would just say use a regular round that's like a size 10 maybe, because we just need that belly full of water. You might not get, no, you definitely won't get the same kind of organic shapes that the mop brush gives you, but just try and see what you can achieve with it. You won't know until you actually try. I have my palette ready. For those of you interested in this, this is by Lisi Arts. I will list her link to Instagram in the description below later. I've been getting a lot of messages about these from you guys, so never fear. All right, for my colors, I'm using my St. Petersburg White Nights. We will be using the Carmine, yellow ochre, golden, violet. This is the Mars Brown. No, this is not the Mars Brown. This is the burnt sienna and the green. Now, if I happen to throw in any more colors, because like I said, I'm winging it and I don't really have a vision for these colors quite yet, but I just know I wanted to use these. So we're gonna begin. All right, so the first thing I think we're gonna do is let's do the same thing that we did with the camellia right here. So this way we get a little bit of practice. For those of you who've tried it, maybe the second or third time around might be a lot easier for you doing this. And so let's mix a little bit of color. And I'm just going to put this brush here for, I'm going to mix, I know I normally mix a whole bunch of color before starting. This time we're going to do something different. I'm just going to mix and get the color as I kind of go along. So the first thing I'm doing is getting my number 4 and I'm mixing some of the yellow ochre. And we're going to do, I love this palette because it has these little ridges and then the colors don't flow or contaminate as much as, I guess, a flat palette, like my larger flat palette is like that. So I'm just getting a little bit of this color here. I'm going to get some color directly from this. And let's keep today light and easy, nothing too stressful, so you guys aren't like racking your head about getting a certain look. So let's just start. I'm going to start by doing the center, and the center we're going to do a couple of little lines in a very haphazard, loose manner. So let's just do, I'm going to do my center over here on this end here. So do it in an oval fashion. Leave a lot of white space. You're kind of going from outward in, or if you want to do the opposite direction, that's entirely up to you. And this area, I'm going to do a mixture of linear lines and then a couple of dots. And I want these like variations of shape, like stripes and polka dots. This is what I relate to it in my head. Relate these in my head with fashion. And I'm just being very light about it. Perfect. And in fact, now that I have this there, and I just like that two-tone variation that I talked to you guys about, and it's still damp, I'm just going to go in and get some of that burnt sienna and just add a little bit of dabs to it at the center, just giving it a little bit of two-tone blending. just like that. And then as soon as I am satisfied with the amount of blending I have, I'm going to go ahead and get my mop brush. Or for those who don't have the mop, use your Princeton or your Silver Black Velvet. I know Melissa mentioned Silver Black Velvet 10 being a great substitute for this, so you can definitely try that. For the color, I am going to use, let's use a purple. So this is the violet. I know I called it purple, but the correct name for this is the violet. And I'm not a huge fan of this violet, so I always kind of get a little bit of my carmine and I mix it in to get like a nicer looking purple. So here we go. I'm getting some of that. I want it to be very light. And so this is what we're going to do first. We're going to start off by doing our first petal. We're doing one stroke. Very lightly. Then like a light stroke at the side of it. And then the second stroke to kind of close up that petal. I'm going to get a little bit more water. Get some more of that color because I need a little bit more. And this side has a little bit, this stroke, well, this color combination that I just mixed has a little bit more of the pink. So you can see there's a slight variation in the color here. And I'm going to add a couple of dabs into this just to have that nice seeping of pink. I'm going to do my next petal over here on this side. This clearly has a lot of water happening here. You can see it's pooling up. And just take my paper towel and just perhaps dab some off. And then just pushing all the water down. Just like that. I'm going to get a little bit more of that purpley color and then just continue to create another petal here. Then just a very light stroke here. I'm leaving all that white space in there. And then I'm going to do one more, closing it up to make our fifth petal. And pushing all the color down to the center, guys, always. And I'm just going to add a couple of more strokes to these guys, the first petals that I did, because they look to be fairly dry to me right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in and get some of this pink, the carmine, I mean, to be politically correct. Mixing it with what I have there already, maybe even get a little bit more of that purple, why not? And then I'm just going to add a couple of dots to have it kind of blend in and give it a darker center. And if your center, like the yellow that you've laid down is still damp and it's blending in with that pink or purple, fabulous. Go for it. Run with it. I'm just going to add a couple of strokes more here to kind of intensify that deep center. And I'm adding strokes like starting from the top, going downward in hopes that it'll kind of give it that texture, linear texture to these petals without looking too flat. Now this petal, I can tell you right away, it's got too much water there, so it might not be as amazing looking as these two petals over here. But this is the only way you're going to learn how much water is good enough and isn't when you make mistakes like this. And I don't claim to be a seasoned artist or anything. So things like this happen with me almost all the time. And at this point, if you want to have just a couple of strokes hanging up, going upward, you can totally do that. Maybe even highlight some of the corners of your petals to get it to be slightly like an implied negative space, because you can see that the petals are very faint at the edges. And obviously we don't want hard edges like that, right? So I'm going to take my number 8 Princeton and making sure I don't have too much water on it. I'm just washing off the edge so that it blends in there. Same thing here. I want it to be a nice soft edge. I don't want hard edges. I want it to be loose. And so I'm just kind of doing a couple of strokes to kind of make that good. All right, perfect. So we have this. We can always go in later and add darker strokes in the center if you wish. But I'm just going to let this dry so we don't overwork it too much. And I'm going to go ahead and start doing some of the leaves. So I'm going to get some of my green. I'm mixing some of my green on here. And you can either choose to mix a little bit of that yellow ochre that we have into the green. So I'm just going to mix it right there. So then now we have like a light green, then we have a dark green as well. And we're just going to go ahead and find an area or find a petal that's still a little bit damp and just kind of add a stroke. Push all the color down. And then I'm just going to dip the tip in water and add another stroke, leaving some white space in between to kind of finish the sleeve off. And you can give the tip a little bit of a twirl or a pointed edge if you wish. Then I'm going to get some of that darker color. You can get it directly from your palette if you want, because now I want like a nice hard, clearly like darker green. You can see the contrast between this green and this green happening. And I'm going to create like another shape that's like a leaf. I'm pushing all the color down, and that's it. We don't need to do too much in terms of leaves for that. If you want, you can just add another stroke, like a very faint stroke, to kind of give it that background leaves are happening. And that's quite pretty as well, so you can leave it that way. So I normally like to do the leaves right away when I have areas that are still damp, and get that blending effect with the leaf and the flower. So you can see how this was the petal I was saying has too much water. When I added that green, it kind of just pooled up here. So I'm just taking my paper towel and just dabbing it a little bit so it doesn't get to be this ugly pooling thing happening. So we've done one of these, and we can move on to another flower at this point. We can even, yeah, let's move on to another floral. Let's do one with a similar concept. So I'm going to get some of this and do a center over here. And again, we're going to be practicing this technique of doing the center and then the petals. So let's do one right here. And the same thing. Your first floral always is a little bit shaky. I'm not sure if that's the word. Maybe harder to do, but once you go on to your second, you're kind of breezing through. Second, third even. I'm just doing the outer area in dots because you're going to see why. And very haphazard kind of dots. I'm going to leave it at that. We can get some of the brown just like we did in the first time around and just add it to the center a little bit. Give it that nice variation. And then I'm going to get some of my, let's get the golden, guys. Here's to winging it. I'm going to get some of that golden in here. And I'm going to do similar strokes to this, but I'm going to make them smaller petals. So maybe this could be like a daisy or something. I'm not quite sure. Sorry. Oh my gosh, it ruined it. Okay, no worries. We're going to run with this because it is a loose style of painting. And this happens. So we're going to do these small little petals all around. And one stroke, two strokes, and we're touching these little yellow ochre dots that we've created. And we'll figure out something for that. You know, I freaked out a little bit when it first happened because I wasn't expecting the brush to just get like knocked out of my hand. So these are I guess these could be like almost like the sunflowers, but using the same technique that I've used here where I'm doing one stroke for one side then the second stroke for the other side. And we're just kind of going to go around and create this pretty flower. Remember the white space, so keep leaving the white space. All right. And then we're doing one here. And they can be spaced out. Like you can see the space over here is like a lot more compared to the spacing over there. That's okay. We're not looking for perfection. We're looking for pretty colors and blending and interesting shapes. All right, so now that we have these in, do you see how that white space really adds something to it compared to like when you have it touching directly there? It just opens up the flower even more. So now I'm going to go in and get some of my carmine. And I'm just going to add a couple of dots in the center here. We're doing the exact same technique as we did for our little pinky purple camellia there. And I'm just getting a little bit of that happening right in the center. So it's like a nice dark. And most of my petals seem to have dried up, but that's okay. Because this, we could just kind of move the color around a little bit to kind of have it seep into areas that have not dried up yet. And then you know my technique of kind of cheating to get a nice flow, which is just taking another, washing off the color, making sure you don't have too much water on here, and just kind of blending that color in so it's not hard edged and it gives you that nice loose effect. So if you have some of those areas in your painting, that's what I suggest you do. Otherwise you're sitting pretty if you don't have to do that. So that's it. I love how this looks. And we can kind of run, because my brush fell down and we've got a little bit of that color, this color on here. We could do another kind of indication that it's this flower just peeking out from the back here and make it smaller. So I'm using my number 4 again. And I'm just gonna create a couple of petals, very light, just like this. And pushing all the color down to the center of this. And just leave it at that. And now we're going to build up by adding additional leaves and such. So I'm getting some of my burnt sienna and I'm mixing some of it here. You can see that clearly it's got some of my green mixed in there too, because sometimes I tend to just double dip, and I don't know, it's time is of the essence when I paint, especially when I feel like something is drying up. And so I know a lot of you might be like, it's important to wash things. I'm not perfect, guys, but this is just how I do things when I'm like in the zone and I want to get things done. So this is still damp, so I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of leaves on here, or maybe just a couple of strokes to kind of indicate leaves. It doesn't even have to be actual looking leaves at this point. But I love how that color looks. Dipping the tip in water to get the second side of my leaf here, pushing all the color down. I'm doing another leaf on this side here, and then let's have just like a very teeny tiny stem happening here with a couple of tiny leaves, and then just some green at the edge here so it kind of seeps in, and you can tell like it's some background florals happening with some pretty colors mixing up and doing its thing. All right, so we have that, and now we can do a couple of like really tiny pretty florals happening on this end, I think. So let's do the carmine, because it can maybe pick up on the center of this floral here, and that might be nice. Oh, I have some carmine on here already, so let's just use this one. So for this, I'm gonna have this looking a lot lighter so that it doesn't fight with these florals that we have happening. So let's just do something that's kind of like a delphinium or one of those kind of florals that have several and they have like a stem almost. So the first thing I like to do is just create a couple of very random organic shapes going off in a direction and a lot of white space in between. In fact, for this one, for those who are adventurous enough and you want to try it, you can actually try using the Filbert that we have because that'll give you a nice shape maybe. I'm just getting a little bit more of that carmine because I want it to be a lot more pinky as opposed to just that. In fact, I'm just going to wash off all the color from my brush and then just using water, I'm going to create a couple of shapes using the color that I've laid down here. And this way it can go from dark to light. And I'm leaving a lot of white space. I'm going to get some color directly from the carmine container, add some dark color to the bottom of these little shapes that I've created. And getting some water on my brush now. I'm just going to kind of phase out and make it lighter. So going back in after you've laid some color down with just water and moving the color around really does help soften the look of your work. Getting some color directly on here and just kind of adding a tad bit to these prominent florals that are at the bottom. And I'm going to leave it at that. So I like this whole, like, it almost looks like it's like an animal print slash polka dot kind of texture to your painting. Now I'm going to get some of the green, any of the green really, and I'm just going to add a couple of lines indicating like stems that they're connecting, and it's damp so it should give you like a nice blend. And just a couple of these stems, you don't need a whole lot. That's pretty. You can even add some green to some of the edges of these petals that you've added. I kind of like how when the green seeps into some of these florals, it kind of looks like it's got a greenish hue to it. And now, remember part of this video where I said you can show darker leaves or florals to make it look like it's in the foreground, and then the lighter ones to make it seem like it's in the background. So we're going to do some light ones in the background. So I'm just getting as much of the water off as I can with a little bit of the color, and I'm just going to create some directional leaves. And you can make them like the long ones exactly like we did in that video there, and they can be just simple strokes and giving it some direction and loose, just like a nice splash of color, like very faded almost. So there we go. We have that, and now we can do, so I've got these colors. Let's do like a rose in the burnt sienna, so that it's a nice balance and offset to the bright colors that we have. I'm just going to mix some of that over here. And you guys have seen and done a lot of my rose videos, so I'm not going to over explain on here because we're going to keep this light. And if you haven't and you're new to this, you should just do a quick search on my playlist. You'll find a ton of rose videos. So we're going to start off with doing the center. And I'm going to do the center by doing these tiny little strokes. So we're going to get some color, a little bit more color directly from the pan. Using my number 4, I'm going to do a couple of strokes. They're like, I call them comma strokes or C strokes. And as I go out wider, I am kind of separating, I'm making sure that the white space is a lot more as I do the outer areas. And then I'm just kind of spreading it out a little bit more. There we go. So this is the base of our rose, okay? So now we can go in with, say, the mop brush, and we're just going to get some water on it, and we're just going to spread out, like do a couple of strokes over what we've just laid down here. And I'm just spreading out it's the same concept of kind of softening your edges, where you just take water and you just soften the edges that you've just laid down. And I want it to be dark in the center and light, yes, dark to light. So dark in the center and light outside. And I like how these little strokes are looking. So this is what I mean by organic shapes that you can get with your mop brush. You can see how this nice little twirl is happening. I love when stuff like that happens. And that's why the mop brush is something I feel like it's expensive, but it's so worth it. Especially if this is something that kind of really gets your mind all excited and pleased with yourself. So now we're going to go back in with the number 4, and I'm going to get the darker shade. So I'm going to get some color directly from the palette. And I want to do a couple of extra strokes happening right here in the center. And then I'm just kind of going in the inner edge of these shapes that I've created, and just very intentionally making sure that I have some light strokes happening in these areas so that it kind of blends in with the damp strokes that we've just laid down. And just a couple of strokes more. Perfect. And I'm just going to leave it at that. And I've washed up most of the color, and I'm just taking whatever water I have on my brush, and I'm just kind of smoothing out these areas here that clearly have dried up and the color has not seeped in. And that's perfect. So you can see how these simple lines and the simple use of color can really enhance something and make it pop out. So, okay, so we've got a rose, we've got our 3 main florals, we've got the little bit at the top here. I think we should definitely repeat that. So what did I use for that one? Yes, so I'm going to use a little bit more of the purple this time and get this purple shade happening. And let's throw that in this section over here. So we're doing a similar thing that we did here, just to kind of offset it, give it some balance. Just gonna add a couple of strokes. Dark strokes right here. Remember your white space as you're kind of going along. Now I'm washing off most of the color. And in fact, at this point, you know what? Maybe get a little bit of that pinky color that you have and add a little bit of pink. Just like in a couple of areas before you go with just water. Now let's go in with some water. So I've washed up most of the color, and I'm just adding the same strokes and like touching the shapes that I've created already. And then as I go out, I'm going to taper and increase the white space in between so that it kind of looks very dark to light, kind of fading happening. And now I'm going to go back and get some of that purple and just kind of add it in certain places if I want it to be a little more highlighted. Just like at the bottom of these areas here. And then remember I was talking about texture. Like one of the things that can give you texture is also like kind of adding a couple of dots towards the edges. You can even do a splatter at the end. It's entirely up to you. But this would be like a cheating way because you're being very concentrated in where you're adding these little dots. So really, it's entirely up to you. But you can see the difference between this one and this one. This one doesn't have the dots. This one does. I kind of like that loose effect that it has. I'm just going to get a little bit more of that purple and just add it to the centers. That was purple, right? Looked like green a little bit for some reason. Yes, so I'm just adding a couple of areas here to give me that nice variation. Just a couple of dabs. Perfect. And now we can get some of the green. Getting some green from my palette. And I am just going to add a couple of green strokes to kind of indicate that they're attached florals. Doesn't have to be all over. This is good enough. So it's good. I think we've got enough florals at this point. We can just kind of end off by doing a couple of leaves. Let's do that light leaf, whatever that is, grass, whatever you want to call it, over on this end here. So I'm just going to add a light stroke here. I love doing these at the edges because it kind of adds so much movement. And such pretty delicate features to your painting that it's like dreamy. So I love how that looks compared to like the darker hues happening. And then now we can kind of, because we've got two of these lighter leaves, why not do, no, let's not do any more light ones. Let's focus on doing the darker ones, and then we can go back to doing some of the lighter ones. So for the dark ones, my favorite, let's use the green. It's called green. And I've got quite a few greens, so just use the leftover greens that you have. And I'm going to get some directly from the palette too. And I think my first one, I want to have one happening over here on this end. And what I'm going to do is, you can see that there's a lot of white space, but I'm going to give this leaf like a shape so it looks like it's curling around the petal of the flower. And I'm just going to do two strokes to kind of show a leaf protruding, and then cover it up, leave a little bit of white space in between to kind of make it seem like it was very loose, but it's sticking with that shape of the petal, the flower. Pushing all your color down and you're good to go. Let's do another one happening over on this end here. So I'm giving it that little curve before I kind of go in and swoop down and do like this stroke. And then pushing all the color down to the center, leaving white space in between, right? Like a very organic shape. You can see how it's not perfect edges, pushing all the color down. And then I'll do another one over here. Let's add that in there. Perfect. Adding some of that green to my palette so I have an area to mix it before going in here and adding more. I'm going to do, let's do these kind of leaves also, because we've got some here, we've got some here. Let's do one happening here. I'm pushing all the color down. And then I'm just going to do one more very tiny over here. Just kind of, okay, clearly not very tiny. This can happen. You might intend to go and do something tiny, and then you do one stroke and you're like, I'm not happy with that stroke. And then you go back and do another one and you're still not happy. And I just did this little curve happening there. So I'm going to leave those there. So I know these greens are here, but I feel like I need to have one happening at the top there. So let's do one over here. I need that dark green to be happening at the top as well a little bit. So I'm trying to shape it to the floral here so that it's not, so that we still have that indication of shape. Perfect. So I think I like this. Now we can kind of go in and just do the rest of the leaves. And by rest, I mean like the tinier ones. These would be the dominant ones. We'll get some tinier ones, kind of like that. So I'm mixing that yellow ochre with the green that I had on there, and I'm just going to use the leftover color. So let's do one happening here. And I'll do a stem over here on this end. Doesn't even have to attach. Like you can see my line has white space in there. My stem, I'm going to do another stem here, and I'm just going to add a couple of strokes attached to this to kind of show that it's got leaves on it. And that's it. So you can see how, again, different kind of shape. Sorry, these brushes are rolling. Different kind of shape compared to these and these little guys over there. And in fact, you know what? Let's do one of these over here. This is still damp. Let's see if we can get a nice blending happening with the green. Probably not, because it looks to be like it's dried up a little bit, maybe. It's okay. What was I saying? Yes, let's do one line here, a stem here, some leaves happening there, and have a leaf happening here. Again, I was trying to get some of that green to seep in, but it's not doing it. Won't have it. That's okay. We'll move on with our lives. I'm going to do another stem here, give it like a web kind of effect. And then just add a couple of leaves just protruding in a very soft, faint green over here. Perfect. So leave it at that. So we've got that there. We've got these here. And then it just makes sense to have some over here on this end. You can see it, right? Yes. Okay, so I'm going to do some slightly upward. And then give it a stem happening over there. Okay, and then go ahead and do the leaves. And you can see they're like simple strokes. We're not overdoing them. Just kind of using the length of the brush to kind of do these simple leaves. And then like always, you can have like a couple of leaves, like very faded, just off in the background. So it looks like there's a couple bit more. They're just not attached to a stem. Some framing. I think you would call it like you're framing your leaves. There we go. So we've got that. Yeah, so I think this is good. You know, I have some leftover green, so I'm just gonna add a couple of more leaves here on this end just to kind of make it seem softer without adding, you know, darker leaves. And I'll just add a little bit of this yellow ochre just to see what that would look like if I just added some strokes, adding it in there. Yeah, just kind of like in the background. And I'll do the same thing over here on this end. Kind of like phasing out the detail, and it's very faint. But it kind of also adds an additional element of tying the whole thing together, the whole piece. I'm trying to get a little bit more of this yellow ochre, and it's not working. There we go. Okay, just leave it at that, just so they kind of highlight and complement each other. Okay, yeah, so this is great. So the last thing I think I want to do is just get some of the purple. And remember we spoke about highlighting the centers. Why not? So I think I can do that for this floral right here. And then we'll do the carmine on this one just to give it a little more definition. Or you might really like how this looks as is. You don't have to enhance it at all. This is just me suggesting it as an option if you want it to be a lot darker and popping a lot more. Obviously this, what we're doing here is not going to give it that soft look because we're doing dry on, we're layering. That's what I'm trying to say. We're layering the colors at this point and it is not wet on wet. So that's why it'll be a lot darker. I'm going to get some of that carmine in there as well for the next few because I'm not liking this purple. I like this purple better. It's like, it's almost like a indigo blue purple, and I like my red purples better. Definitely a hot compared to cool person. Getting some of that over here, and it's fine if you have the variation in purples at this point because, you know, the thing about loose watercolors is you can have a whole bunch of different colors, but as long as they complement each other, you are guaranteed to have something pretty, unless they mix and the kind of mixtures you have, they're complementary and then they look like mud. That's what you don't want. The muddy ones. Just adding a couple more of these strokes. So there we go. We've got that there. Now these look to be a lot lighter compared to these ones, so I'm just going to add that purple a tad bit more on this side. Perfect, and leave it that way. And then finally, yes, this right here for the carmine that I mentioned. So I'm going to get some carmine and I'm just going to add, I'm not going to fill up the white space like I did there. I'm going to make sure that I just add this only in the areas and leaving that white space open. And light flicks, not really pressing the brush on my paper as I am doing this because I want it to be very thin strokes. And then finally this one, and we are good to go. I think this is great. Now, remember we spoke about the 4 things from this week's video, which was focusing on loose floral painting, which is white space, colors, shapes, and texture. So we've got texture in details like this. We've got the colors in having the 2 tones kind of seeping into each other. We've got the shapes, having different variations of shapes to kind of generate some interest. You can add additional texture to some of your leaves if you wanted to, just to make them pop a little bit more. So for instance, if I wanted to go back in, here's one suggestion. If you want to do it, you can just add some stem detail to some of the leaves. So for instance, like the darker leaves, you can kind of give them a little bit of detail like this. And it really does make the whole thing pop a little bit more when you just do it on some and not all of them. So same thing here. I'm just going to add that here. You might choose not to. It's entirely up to you. And I'm literally using the same color so that it'll dry. It'll be darker, but it won't be crazy dark, stark looking. And I have one here, so I'll do that one there. Just mixing a little bit of that because it's a little bit dry. And adding that over here on this end. Then we've got one here, and then finally those two there, although those are quite dark, so that might not be as visible. That's okay, but let's try it anyways. We might get like a very faint water mark slash stain, and that's okay. All right, there we go. So this is what we have. This was me winging it, guys. Hope you guys like this. I'm going to switch over now. So if anyone has any questions, now is the time to ask me. Here we go. All right. Okay. I know it's 3:05. I think we did pretty good despite the fact that it was a late start. Let me see if anyone had any questions really quickly, and then we can absolutely wrap up. Quite a few questions about paper, it seems. Lale. All the paper I'm using is Canson, as I think Patty mentioned. It is not 100% cotton. It is the Canson watercolor. It's called Canson Watercolor, and it's listed in the description below, so you can check out the links there if you want to see what product I am using. The golden is golden, Pamela. This is called golden. And the purple is called violet, and that's St. Petersburg. Okay, I think that is, I'm not seeing any other questions. Kathy says bye. Bye, Kathy. Yes, Patty says I have to practice white space. Guys, honestly, white space is a game changer in any painting. Like, you have to have white space. It's hard to do it initially, but like it just really brightens up and brings out the whole painting as a whole. Like, I love how this floral right here turned out, despite the fact that the spacing in it is not as, you know, constant. But same thing with the rose. Like, you can just see it's like a slight indication of it. So that's the one thing with loose painting, like white space is a lifesaver. Okay, awesome. I think like everyone had fun. It looks like everyone really liked this. I'm glad this was fun. I kept it light, didn't want to make it too intense, just based off everything that the two videos from this week. So thanks so much, guys, for joining me. Feel free to subscribe if you're new and you just kind of stumbled upon this live today. I have a lot of other videos. And for those of you who have painted today, please, I want to see your work. So send it to me on Instagram. My handle is HelloClariceG. And you can also send it to me on Facebook. There's a group. So either way, send it to me. Love seeing it. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask. But yeah, it's Sunday, and I just want to say thank you so much for giving me your time today, and we will chat soon. Have a lovely, lovely day with your family, and yeah, that's it, guys. All right. Okay. Bye, guys. Stay tuned for the next video tutorial, which will come out on Thursday at 8 a.m. Bye.